Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I am well, Lake. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Second time today, meeting up to do a recording.
I know. And earlier today, I was like business Christy, and now I'm like casual Christy. You know what's exciting? We are recording our second first-time cruiser episode today.
Yes, we've had so many first-time cruisers on recently, and we love first-time cruiser shows. But this is a triple first time. We've got first time cruising, first time Disney cruising, and first time concierge, which is a topic we have not dove into in quite a while.
Yeah, we realized, and we were talking briefly before the show, that I have sailed concierge twice, and we haven't really addressed it at all. So it's time that we do a little bit too of a concierge recap.
Yeah, both of your last concierge were also friend cruises, and obviously me being on one of them and then Liz being on the other. So we had a very general show with everyone. So we haven't dove into concierge and what's included in a while. So as Christy said, we're going to discuss that a little bit once that becomes relevant information. But then we will still have all of your usual fun trip reporting to go on here, because we do have a pretty good itinerary, also an absolutely fabulous ship. But we should get into it. So with that, I would like to welcome our guest today, Johnny. Johnny, how are you today?
I am good. How are you guys?
We are doing pretty good. As always, excited to record this episode. And we were very excited to see you fill out the form for us. Very enthusiastic comments on there, which made us say, let's get him on the show. So thank you once again for that. But why don't you begin by telling our guests a little bit about your Disney background and cruising background?
So, in regards to Disney background, I am born and raised here in Southern California. I'm actually about an hour away from Disneyland, so I have been going there ever since I can remember. I grew up staying at the hotels at the Disneyland Resort all the time, and it's pretty much just in my blood. I'm there at the park at least once a week, hanging out with my friends, whether it be we're just going into the park for a little bit just to catch up, or we're going to one of the bars at the Grand Californian to just sit back and relax and catch a nice little poolside drink vibe. I'm pretty much always there. In regards to my cruising background, that was non-existent until this trip on the Fantasy, because we just never really thought it would be a good idea, like my family. But a good friend of mine who lives in Florida convinced me to just bite the bullet and try to go on a cruise. So we booked the Fantasy, because after doing some research, it lined up with when we wanted to be out at Walt Disney World anyways. So we could tag on a trip to Walt Disney World after the sailing.
And who did you travel with?
I traveled with my parents. So whenever we travel, it's really just the three of us, because I'm the only child, and it's all of us just going together, going on a nice, fun little family vacation.
Perfect. And we usually would ask this later, but, we are going to talk about concierge, but you didn't book concierge when you originally booked this cruise. What cabin did you book?
We originally booked just a regular family veranda stateroom on deck 10, because I had no idea what I was going through when we were looking at the offerings for concierge on the site. We're like, oh, I don't know what that is, but this room looks similar, so we'll just book that.
The same footprint, but that might be where some of those similarities end.
Just very different sheets.
Right. But they're still, the regular sheets are so good. They're just, you don't even necessarily miss them. I'll say that. The regular sheets are amazing. So did you book the family veranda with the drop down fifth sleeper, or were you going to sleep on the couch?
I was going to sleep on the drop down fifth sleeper, because I knew my parents would be having the queen size bed, and I'm actually pretty tall. I'm 6'4". So I would rather not sleep on that tiny little twin size couch and have my feet kind of like dangling off. So we did originally book the one with the Murphy bed that pulled down.
Okay. That cabin that you booked isn't what you ended up sleeping in. Spoiler alert. Tell us what change you made and how you went about that.
So I had been doing some research, and when I looked into a little bit more of what concierge was and everything like that, I kind of came to the conclusion that, this is something that my family would really value based off of all the benefits that I saw on the website and just looking online, seeing what concierge was like. So before we even got to the port, I was on the website trying to, modify a reservation. I'm going to find out there was nothing available. So I was like, you know what my family doesn't know about won't hurt them. I'm just going to pretend like it didn't exist. We go to the port, we go through security, and we're up in like the big waiting area where they have the big Mickey that people walk through. And they had I think it was like guest services desk or something like that over there for check-in or whatnot. And I overheard somebody say that that's where you would go to inquire about potentially upgrading your cabin if they have any room available.
Yep. And specifically, that's the manager's desk, which is in the corner, basically on that long, what used to be the old check-in desk.
Oh, okay. But we went over there, waited in line, and we just inquired if they had any concierge staterooms available. And they did. They had one singular one-bedroom suite available. And I'm sitting there with my family. We're just kind of talking over, and they're like, you know what? We normally stay club level at Disney Resort hotels. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it.
Do you remember what the charge was?
I think the upgrade was around 5,000.
Okay. And so just for the listeners to know, they have like a chart, and it's like a graph chart, and it goes through with whatever cabin you arrived with, like whatever booking you were currently in. So if he was in a 4A or whatever for the family veranda, they would draw a line across and then say, based upon the number of people or whatever, it's this much money. And so there's nothing to negotiate. It's the price and you agree to pay for it. So in a one bedroom, obviously on these cruises would be like, it depends on the ship, of course, but on the Fantasy for a 4-night, maybe around $20,000, or that's too high. But whatever it is, it's significant. And the 5,000 is still quite a savings over that fee that they would charge for the one bedroom. Okay, so you guys decided, yes, we're going to do it.
Yes. And it was really funny because when we actually were there at the desk and they said that this is the stateroom we had available, and we said, yes, we would take it. We kind of saw all the crew members from behind the counter, their faces kind of just light up. They're like, oh, you're getting that room. And I had no idea what they meant by that. They're just thinking, oh, well, I mean, it's concierge. So maybe they're just like, oh, like they got that room. But they were hinting at like, oh, like we got something really, really special. And it kind of turns out afterwards that we did, but I didn't figure that out until we got to the room.
What was your special room?
We got stateroom 12,000. So it's nestled in between the Royal Suites. And I was blown away at that beautiful extended veranda.
Yeah, so it's all the way forward. That's exciting.
Yeah, so we were super, super excited once we got to that room. But it was funny because going back to when we were at the desk and everything, so they had already started boarding guests on the ship and everything like that when we upgraded. A crew member came out from the counter and escorted us over to where the concierge waiting area is, and she gave us the little stickers that designate that you're concierge. So we're sitting there waiting for one of the hosts to arrive to escort us onto the gangway to kind of bypass everything over there. And when we got onto the ship, I just started crying because I did not know what to expect when I walked in there. And walking into that atrium, seeing that stunning chandelier, how beautiful that atrium is, hearing my family's name be announced when we're walking onto the ship, it was so emotionally overwhelming, but in the best way possible. I cannot describe the sheer amount of joy that I felt, and I even witnessed it on my parents' faces when we were walking in there, how it was like they were rolling out the red carpet. Every single person that was walking through there felt like royalty. And this was just like a split second, we felt like the most important people. And it was just so, so nice. And it was just such a great way to start.
Oh my God, I love this. Blake, have we even stated what ship he's on? It's my fault because I'm just very excited to talk about this topic. But so this was the atrium of the Disney Fantasy, which is our favorite ship. I mean, there was a lot of good ships, but she still edges off the others. And that beautiful peacock chandelier. Oh my God, I love it.
Yes, we are huge fantasy fans.
I am with you guys on that now. I have a plan now to sail on every single ship, and I already know that the Fantasy will stay my number one for all of eternity.
Although if you're doing concierge for every cruise, I'll be curious because there are some really good concierge lounges. So, but we'll talk about those differences briefly when we get to the concierge section. But I love that first. So did you go to the concierge lunch first, or what did you do after that beautiful moment of entering the ship?
So after that beautiful moment of entering the ship, it's funny. My mom looks at me and she's like, you know what I could go for right now? A martini. So I have no idea where I'm going. I'm normally the map whenever we're going everywhere, and I'm all topsy turvy. I've never been on a ship before, but I see a little bar off of the atrium, and I think it was called Bon Voyage or something like that. So we were initially trying to go over there, but then a crew member saw us with our little gold stickers, and they were like, oh, no, 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 come over this way, come over this way. And so I'm just like, okay, sir, I'll follow you. And we go into, I think it was Royal Court. Yeah, so we go into Royal Court and they're explaining to us how this is the private concierge lunch that they have set up.
And your martini is included for the first lunch on the first day.
So we went ahead, sat down, had lunch. We met our concierge host, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember his name, but he was an absolute angel the entire stay. Came down, introduced himself, was explaining to us what all the benefits of concierge are. And I'm sitting there with my family. We're all listening to this, and our facial expressions probably look something akin to like the color wheel on a computer when it's loading. Because I'm just like, this is so much. What's going on? This still doesn't even feel real. Like, pinch me. I have to be dreaming. But the week sat down, enjoyed our lunch. I had a nice little glass of Sauvignon Blanc while my mother had a martini. And we just sat there and enjoyed our lunch. And after he was done talking with us, he told us that our cabin would most likely be ready by the time we're done with our lunch. So we went ahead, finished up our lunch, headed upstairs to see where the cabin was. I was trying to figure out how do I even get over there because I had zero idea where I was going. It was just being immersed in this brand new environment for the first time ever. It was, again, so overwhelming, but in the best way possible. So eventually we make our way to the cabin and we go ahead and unlock our door. And I was blown away at just the cabin itself. Those rooms are so beautiful, so magnificent. I love the Art Deco styling of everything, the burnished wood paneling, just the dark colors. It really felt like something out of the 1920s. And I love that era of design and architecture. So it just was phenomenal.
So that cabin, though, doesn't have a fifth sleeper, does it? So you were back on a fold-out couch, but at least right?
It actually does have a fifth sleeper.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Is that where you slept?
So funny enough, that isn't where I slept. I did sleep on the couch because when they pulled down the sleeper, my feet still dangled off of it. So I just slept kind of at an angle on the pull-out couch for the entire duration of the trip, which was totally good for me.
Concierge has the double sleeper sofa versus the individual beds that other cabins would have. So you actually have a little bit more space. You go sideways, and it wasn't too bad being on the fold-out sofa.
No, it was actually still really nice. Like, I'm used to being on the fold-out sofas whenever we travel anywhere, so I'm just like, I'm just happy to be here. But it was actually really comfy. I was pleasantly surprised at how comfortable that was.
And then where did you go after you got your beautiful tour of your room?
So after we got the tour of the room, we actually went over to the lounge to go ahead and see what the lounge was. So we walked all the way down the hallway because we saw there were doors on the side of the lounge being able to get in, but we weren't sure if we were able to use those because they just look kind of like hidden. So we walked to the main entrance. We found that out later, but we walked down to the main entrance of the lounge, walked down that little like corridor that they have that takes you into the lounge. And one of the hosts there that was inside welcomed us, like told us her name and explained what all the services they offer are, kind of gave us the little like piece of paper that shows the breakdown of the amenities and the different times that they have different food out and everything like that. So we checked out the lounge a little bit. It was really cute. I liked it. It did feel kind of small.
It'll change. That fantasy lounge is only that size for another 4 months or something like that. Because after, well, I guess it's a few more months after that. But after the summer sailing, it's going in dry dock and it's going to get the big open. They're going to take out some parts and it's going to open it up a bit.
That'll be really nice. But we checked out the lounge. They're really nice. Liked it in there. And then we went up to the sun deck. I really liked the sun deck up there. I liked how it was shaded because being out in that Bahamian heat, even though it was November, it was still killer. It was really hot still, and I could just feel the UV on us. So it was really nice to be able to go up to the sun deck and just relax there and still enjoy the ambiance, but be covered from the elements a little. And I like how they had that little whirlpool up there. Then after that, we went to the sail away party, and that was a lot of fun. I had zero idea what to expect the entire time, but just watching everybody gather over there, seeing all the performers and everything like that, all the characters, it kind of reminded me of just like a cute little stage show from Disneyland where the performers are really just trying to hype everybody up. And then the cruise director came on, introduced himself, and we had the countdown and everything like that to the ship's horn, and I just broke down in tears again when I heard "When You Wish Upon a Star" over the ship's horn. It was so surreal, and I really can't describe it other than I've never felt that level of joy before in my entire life.
I love
It
it.
was truly such an amazing experience.
Love it. Well, before we get into the evening, let's go ahead and kind of section this out and we'll discuss the rest of your concierge experience here. But before we get into that, you unfortunately miss out on, I think, one big key part of concierge, and that's the early booking and the concierge booking experience. Christy, would you go ahead and just explain the benefits of that for our listeners?
Yeah, basically, concierge allows you to book your cruise activities before everybody else. And you'll see it in your shipboard account on the day that Pearl books, which I believe is 130 days before the cruise, 135, 130. With concierge, you actually email them 5 days before that and they tell you the date. So you don't have to like try to figure it out yourself. And you email them your request. And this starts at midnight. And unfortunately, I would say the Facebook groups and the social media has made it a lot more competitive because in the olden days, you used to be able to email at midnight and basically get everything you want. But now they know, and they're like literally ticking down the seconds after midnight when the email occurs to see what order people have sent their email. And this is so that you can request if you wanted a cabana in advance of your cruise. And if you wanted Enchanté or Remy, depending on your ship, or Palo or brunch, whatever you want at a certain time, you can request appointments. You can request tasting. So if there's a tasting you want, and even prior to that date, you can email them to get the schedule of when the tastings will occur, which that was super helpful. Like when we did our cruise together, because we were able to see, yes, there was a gin tasting or martini tasting at this time. There was wine tasting at this time. And so you're able to like make plans a little bit before that booking window opens. You can do Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. So basically all the things that you would go into your app at midnight yourself to book, you request that they book it. And then magically, when your booking window opens, they show up in your app with whatever you've gotten booked. So that is a perk for concierge if you have booked more than the 135 days before your cruise.
Concierge early booking is 130 days. Pearl is 123 days. Guests may request reservations from shoreside concierge 130 days prior to sailing.
I was going to say that sounds familiar for our sailing that we're actually doing next month because I'm actually hopping on the Wonder in Alaska in about less than a month. And that's what I did to get all of our excursions and everything like that because I read that Alaska excursions just sell out super fast. And it was just like, well, we're going to be on the ship. We're taking the trek up there. We better get everything that we want to do. So I had an email typed out and it was at like 12:01 a.m. I sent it out.
Perfect. Yeah, you want to make sure that you don't send it before 12 because then you'll go at the end of the list, but you don't want to wait too long. I mean, if it's not a cabana, then it's not as important to be at that exact right moment. And then the only other thing I would say about this is that people still say, if you want a cabana, you have to be in concierge. And if you want a cabana, you get a chance of concierge. But on every ship, there are more cabanas at the beach, or there are more concierge cabins than there are cabanas. And some people can book more than one cabana. So do not assume that it's with certainty that you will get a cabana any longer if you are in concierge. Some people still search the app like crazy and make sure that to see if something opens up. So if you don't have the opportunity and you are, right is the right word, persistent, then you can still potentially get a cabana.
Let's turn it back to Johnny and your experience in concierge. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about what perks you were able to take advantage of, what amenities they provided you, and what you thought of the concierge experience?
So in regards to the amenities that they provided, everything like that, I personally enjoyed every single one of them. I loved having direct access to the concierge, crew members in the lounge versus having going down to the guest services desk to get anything. Because there were multiple times throughout our voyage that I saw a line over at guest services, and I was just thinking, you know what? I can just walk all the way forward to deck 12 and just go ahead and ask them for any assistance that I need.
Yeah, you should not, as a concierge member, you should not go to guest services. Literally, the host in the lounge, that there is a host there all day long from like 7 to 10. They will handle every request that you might have, including making change, including dealing with your tips at the end of the cruise. All of those items they can deal with directly.
They were super helpful for us with going and getting reservations for Remy because, also, spoiler alert, we went to Remy 3 separate times.
Oh my God. You just see like space too.
Yeah, so that happened.
Oh, we are going to talk about that in a minute.
I was able to snag Remy 75 days out originally when I booked, and that was the only reservation we were able to get. We were unable to get Palo, but I mean, Remy 3 times, I can't argue with that. But we loved being able to have them get anything that we needed. One of my favorite amenities too was that happy hour from 5 to 10, because I can't tell you how amazing it was to go up to the lounge and get a Cosmopolitan and then utilize that early entry to the Walt Disney Theater so that way we could have seats front and center for the show. But I got to take my nice little beverage, down with me and then have my popcorn. I felt like I was on top of the world and my life couldn't get better than that.
Yeah, let's talk briefly about the schedule of concierge and what's included. So they do a lighter breakfast from 7 to 10 in the morning. If you are on the Treasure of the Wish, they have an actual galley. So they will make you hot breakfast. The other 4 ships, there's no galley. So there's no real hot food. Like sometimes they'll make toast for you if you need toast. But they have a light, I would say a continental breakfast, but there's meats and cheeses and stuff too. So you get some protein, but so you have the continental breakfast. Then they have lunch, which are really like tiny sandwiches and some fruit and like a tiny little salad type thing from 11 to 1:30. They do have high tea with like scones and the things you would put on a scone. And then there are appetizers in the evening from 5 to 8 and then dessert from 9 to 10. And if you've ever done club level at Walt Disney World, it sort of follows a very similar schedule. The difference, though, with concierge is alcohol is only included from 5 to 10 on the ships. And basically, you get some really nice champagnes, really nice wines. They'll make you a lovely cocktail. On the Wish and Treasure, they have a full bar so they can make a lot more drinks. On the original 4 ships or the first 4 ships, they have more of like a bar that they move in and out. So it's not quite as extensive. But if you had a request within reason, they can get that liquor for you or that drink for you if it's available around the ship. And then I think they now have a blender on the original 4 ships, but it's not like as readily available as they would have because it's not a full bar. So they go into the galley for that or their little kitchen.
I do recall seeing a blender in the lounge because I do remember, I think, I guess, pina colada or something like that while we were in there. So yeah, that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, and that's a change because I would say like 5 years ago or something, there was no blender, and I'm glad they've gotten past that and actually provided that now. So then the other benefit that Johnny made mention of is that you have access early seating for the theater shows. So this allows you can go down 45 minutes before. If you're later than that, they open up the theater. So you're not going to get that entrance. You also get popcorn, fresh popped popcorn, anytime you'd like from the popcorn stands. And then they have bags of popcorn tucked away. It's always tucked away as if it never exists, but you can ask them at any time for the bags of popcorn that are all sealed up so that you can have those in your cabin if you want. Or you can just show your card at the popcorn stand and get popcorn. And then depending on your cabin, you also get some included internet now. You get 24 hours a day of internet for a family veranda. And then the 1 bedrooms and up.
We got I think it was like their basic package. It was just whatever their like baseline package was, but for like the entire duration.
Yes. And so there you go. And then they have the higher package that their royal suites and the higher end suites will receive as well. And then if you are in a 1 bedroom, you can actually have room service delivered to your cabin. And you can do that for all 3 meals of the day. So, and those are for a 1 bedroom and higher. And I think those are the basic inclusions. Oh, and then they'll do a meet and greet with a character during your cruise, which they don't know who the character is ahead of time. And you don't get a lot of warning, maybe like the day before, sometimes 2 days before, where they'll give you a save the hour type card that says you're invited and let you know when. And then sometimes they'll have some drinks out for that as well. And I think those are like the main inclusions besides just being able to have access to those concierge hosts all day. I did forget there are coffee machines. So if you wanted a coffee machine, like an espresso machine, they have those. And you can do like, it's like a press button latte, but you can get that. And they have all the little pumps if you want to pump in flavorings of your coffee. And then they have soda and bottled water readily available in the concierge lounge as well. So you can just like run in. For my son, when we need milk for him, they always have milk as well. So just things like that. It makes it very convenient. And then the lounge is just a separate space. So when my son was younger, we were just recently talking about this. When he was 2 and we would be, or 3 and we would be in concierge, we were able, my son and I would wake up earlier. We could just go into the lounge and he could have his milk and watch the Mickey Mouse shorts on the TV and just have a little moment while my husband was still sleeping. So just having that extra space to be able to go somewhere if somebody was taking a nap or something like that, it's really nice.
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that extra space because we utilize that a lot. A great example is like I would be going out doing something. I would be having a nice little drink in the lounge or having some snacks and whatnot. And my parents would be back at the room kind of just relaxing because they're checking out everything. When we were on this cruise, my mom had some pretty big mobility issues with her knee because she had a torn meniscus. So she was really just staying in the stateroom a lot of the time, kind of just resting and relaxing and still also getting used to being on the ship when you can feel it moving. And she'd be like, "Did you feel that?" So it was just stuff like that. And I wish we had also known about the hot breakfast, being able to order it ahead of time, because I found out about that after we had already disembarked. And I told my mother that, and she was like, "I would have used that every single day."
And it's like, it's hard. The concierge host can't tell you every single thing. In theory, they would have had the sheet in your cabin that says hot breakfast can be ordered from room service, but they don't always put that out. And maybe because that cabin hadn't been filled already, they didn't have the things in there for as if the cabin was filled. But yeah, now people listening will know. And if you are in a royal suite or above, like the Walt Disney suite or whatever they call it on the Wonder and the Magic, you also can have Palo delivered to your cabin as room service in the evening. So, and for the royal suites, those are included. So it's not an additional charge. Oh, and I think they have a freezer of Mickey bars in your cabin as well if you are in the royal suite. So those are just like fun things to if you have one of those larger suites. But yeah, so the extra space is great. Is there anything else that you can think of that we didn't include about the lounge?
I'm trying to think because it was really just like the food amenities. And I like that parallel that you made to like concierge at Walt Disney World, because as we've stayed concierge at multiple Walt Disney World resorts, it felt like a very, very similar experience. I did feel like the service element of it was extremely elevated on Disney Cruise Line, tenfold, just phenomenal. I remember there was even a day where my mom mentioned she loved the bed runner that was on the bed because it had like the little logo on it and it was just nice, soft, and plush. And she made a joke of, "Oh, if this bed runner disappears, will we just be charged for it?" And the concierge host went down to the store and brought up a sealed one for her. And she said, "If you would like to purchase it, you just go ahead and take it off the ship. If you don't want to purchase it, go ahead and just leave it in the room and your account won't be charged."
That is amazing. I love that.
It was just those small little moments like that where it's just the attention to detail, the level of care that they had. It was phenomenal. And it was, in my opinion, very, very much worth it.
Love that. Any other notes on Concierge before I take it to the rest of the beautiful Disney fantasy?
Not that I can think of.
Well, let's go ahead and venture outside of the Concierge Lounge here. Let's talk about the ship and how you spent your time on board. What were some of your favorite activities that you got up to on board?
A lot of my favorite activities were like the little trivias that I noticed. I was scrolling through the Navigator app, really trying to find what I liked. I really couldn't figure out how to actually navigate the Navigator app until about day 3 because I was like, this is confusing. There's a lot here. How do I filter it? But I eventually found out how to filter it, and we did the trivia. I love the Disney Parks trivia because I'm a huge Disney Parks nerd. So I did pretty good in that. I didn't win a medal, sadly, but I was close. But I love doing that. I love going into Europa and watching any of the live entertainment. I practically lived in Ooh La La in the evening because that piano player was phenomenal. I remember on one of the nights there, I was sitting there and all of a sudden I started to hear Champagne Problems by Taylor Swift. And I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. So I'm sitting there holding my elder bubble, just crying, just like, how could life get any more perfect than this moment? And he just played a couple of different songs, and it was just super, super nice. And I really enjoyed all of the live music that they had on board the ship and the trivia. Didn't really go into the movie theater to see any movies because I heard that they play like new releases in the Buena Vista Theater on the ship, but didn't really see anything that catered to me. And then I absolutely loved the stage shows, just phenomenal.
Did you have a favorite?
It was Believe. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, this is so
Okay.
Lake and I are made the exact same face because this is the second guest that has picked Believe in the past like week. So that's great. I love that.
This is why first time cruiser shows are so great.
Right? I love a good fresh perspective.
I had no idea what to expect going on because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, oh, well, this is a Broadway style production on a ship, but there's no way it's going to be Broadway caliber considering all the limitations. Like you're literally on this little vessel that's the speck of an ant floating in this massive ocean and it's moving. How are they able to do it? And I was blown away. I loved it. It made me cry. That shouldn't be a surprise though, because when I'm happy, I cry.
I love that. I'm
But
a big crier too. So yay, crying.
it was phenomenal. We only saw Believe and Frozen though. We forgot about Aladdin, so we walked in there like halfway through the show, and we were like in the back corner watching it. We're just like, no, let's just go back up to our room and sit on the veranda.
Did you have late dining or early dining?
We had late dining.
Did you ever go though if you went to Enchante 3 times?
Yes, we did. So
well, let's go ahead and get into that and tell us what parts of your rotational dining you did make, and then we will go into where you spent the rest of your time for dining.
So for rotational dining, I know for sure we went to Animator's Palette and Enchanted Garden. Those are the only 2 that we went to.
What were your thoughts on those 2 at least?
Animator's Palette, I really liked it. I like my food there. I got the pork chop. And I'm very picky with pork because I've had so many dry pork chops in my life to where I'm just very adverse to them. So I was really hesitant ordering it, but I really liked it. It was nice and tender and it wasn't dried out. I like how it had a herb crusting on there. It was good. I think it was like a soup or something that I forget what the soup was, but it was pretty good. I really liked the dinner over there. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've had, but it was good. It was still good. Enchanted Garden, though, was not my favorite. I think it was a scallop dish there, and you could have mistaken them for like tiny little like tires on like a toy car because they were just rubbery and it wasn't good. It came with this, I think it was like a rice that had a red sauce in there, and I pretty much eat everything. I consider myself a foodie. It was inedible. I could not eat it. The flavor, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just my dish because my parents had different dishes and theirs were okay. They weren't great, but they were still edible. But mine was just not great. I like the dessert though. So it got some redeeming points there. But the food there, I would say no. I love the decor of the restaurant though. I absolutely loved how magnificent it was, like how you were walking to this magic garden and how the lights change and how the plants change colors throughout the meal. That was really cool.
Well, then let's go with where you spent the rest of your time for dinner. You had 3 reservations for Remy. Were they all dinners?
We had 2 dinners and 1 brunch.
Was your brunch menu the same as dinner?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. So, and they couldn't get you Palo for your other night?
They couldn't. So we asked for Palo because I wanted to try to do Palo dinner and Palo brunch above going back to Remy again. And they were full. Like the wait list was full, and they even apologized multiple times. They're like, we're so sorry. Like, it's just really busy. I'm just like, you do not have to say you're sorry to me. You're already going above and beyond trying to get me a reservation.
Okay, so let's talk about Remy brunch first. Tell us about that. Did you eat an egg? Like, what was it, a preset menu?
It was like a prefix menu. We didn't really order anything though. It was more so they just served us.
Okay.
And the best way I can kind of describe it, it's like traditional brunch meals, but deconstructed. That's what it felt like because like we had this egg dish. I have to even like pull out my phone just to like look at visual references of it because it was magnificent. But I remember getting this delicious little egg to start and it was amazing. I've never had anything like that. And I'm thinking, it's an egg. How creative can you get with it? Well, apparently you can get really creative with it.
I want that
And
meal.
it was just so good. And I think this was on our last day that we went for brunch because our sea day was at the end of the cruise.
And then dinner. So did you guys order different things? Like did one person order off the French menu and one off the American menu? Or there's like a tastings menu?
We did the tastings menu both nights. Both nights we did the tastings menu because we actually didn't know about the a la carte menu until after. And that's actually why we went back a second time because my mother and I opted for the American menu and my father opted for the French one. So we're like, oh, we can go back a second time and go ahead and switch it.
Okay. So I guess you just really loved it so much the first time that you wanted to do it again?
That was pretty much it. So a little background for in that regard. My family, we actually frequent Napa Rose over at the Grand Californian Hotel. So that's one of our favorite restaurants to go to. We love dining at the chef's counter over there. So we like those elevated meal experiences. I didn't know what to expect going in there because again, I'm thinking, oh, we're on a cruise ship. And I'm comparing it in my mind to what Napa Rose is going to be like. And I was blown away. It was phenomenal. And we loved it so much that my mom actually told me, she was like, can you book this for us again? And I'm looking at her like, I barely grabbed this. How do you expect me to work this magic? What sorcery? And then I'm just like, oh, I could just go and ask them. And they worked their magic and they got us in because it was on night 3 that we went back to dinner there.
Yeah, how amazing. What are your thoughts between dinner versus brunch there?
For me personally, you can't go wrong with either. I've heard recently with on the Wish and Treasure how Ashante, how the brunch is literally the exact same thing. And what I liked about Remy is that while it had that same luxury element, it felt like a brunch because I didn't leave there feeling as stuffed as I would from dinner.
Okay.
And it still also had that lesser price point. I think it was $80 instead of $135. So it still was very much that elevated meal and experience, but just toned back a little bit. So in my opinion, you can't really go wrong with either. But if I had to choose, I would choose dinner.
And then which menu did you like better?
I was pleasantly surprised that I liked the French one more. I was really, really surprised because while I do like French food, it tends to not be my favorite type, but they do something really, really special on that ship. It was spectacular.
Love that.
Did you get to experience any of like the deck food or cabanas then?
So I did go to Cabanas one day for breakfast, and I was very pleasantly surprised as to what the offerings were up there. Who would have thought that I could get eggs Benedict
Right?
at a buffet? I was so taken aback by that. And I actually got that. I ate mine and I ran back down to our room and I had to tell my mom because she loves eggs Benedict. And I was telling her it was at the buffet and she kind of looked at me with a weird look like, wait, what? Because I'm thinking that's not typical buffet food, but we were so shocked at how good the buffet food was. So I got breakfast there one day. And then later on that same day, we went back there for lunch and we were blown away at just the amount of food there. Like we love seafood. We're really, really big on seafood. So the fact that they had the shrimp and the crab legs and everything like that, they're just super, super good.
And we don't talk about it much, but they have sushi back in there at like the carving station 1 or 2 days, maybe just one day on a cruise. So if you go all the way to the back, some of the days you can find sushi.
I did not know that.
And then, of course, they have the carving station back there too for lunch. And then what else were you going to say? Did you eat any deck food?
Yes, so I did have to indulge in a little bit of pizza and some chicken tenders because I had heard so much about how the chicken tenders on Disney Cruise Line are literally life-changing, and I can confirm they were. In fact, some of the best chicken tenders I've ever had in my whole life. So I had some of that, and it was really nice just being able to kind of sit out there, grab a little table, and just look out the window and watch the waves go by. I can't even say enough how much I've never felt that at peace before in my entire life. Like that level of relaxation, I didn't know could exist until I stepped foot on that ship.
Love that. Well, you mentioned Ooh La La and of course the concierge spaces. Were there any other spaces on board that stuck out to you as favorites or places you just found yourself going back to?
I really liked Europa specifically. So I went to La Piazza, which is where we did the trivia one day. In O'Gill's, my mother and I actually did a beer tasting one day, and that was a lot of fun. Really liked that. Ooh La La was my favorite spot over there. But then in the Tube, I liked over there because that's where I got to see Match Your Mate. And that show was so funny. I really was not expecting anything like that to be on specifically a Disney ship. And I really love that they do have a level of adult entertainment for adults.
Yeah, I agree. It is so good. That's one of the shows that I'll try to like have an espresso martini or something or a coffee at dinner so that I can stay up because it starts at 10:30, but it is well worth it because it's the hosts that they pick are hilarious.
They were so funny. For us, it was also the guests that they picked up there. There was such a wide variety of different guests, different demographics, everything like that. It was just so, so funny. And then the one place I really wanted to explore more, but I was really upset that we didn't, was Meridian. Because when we went there for Remy all three times, I saw that there was that lounge there, and I really, really, really wanted to go. But the only time we went to Meridian or had the time to was when we did the mixology course because I was able to book that. So, and I think the mixology course for us, I think it was like 2 hours or something like that after our brunch. So I was just like, oh, I'm back here. And I really, really wish I'd just taken more time to go ahead and sit in that space because that lounge was exactly my type of vibe that I was going for. That beautiful overlook of the aft of the ship. You had that little like outdoor patio where you could go ahead and sit down and enjoy everything. I was just kicking myself. I'm like, why did I discover this so late into the sailing?
Well, and I think that's one of the disadvantages of concierge, honestly, is that you sometimes don't explore as much because you have the lounge and you have the drinks that you can get in the lounge in the evening. You know, these are included. And so it does make you use some of those other spaces less, for sure.
Well, we still have not gotten off the ship because you have two very exciting ports to discuss here. So let's get into it. So you got to visit both of Disney's private islands, Castaway and Lookout. Was there one or the other that you were more excited for?
Truth be told, I was very, very excited for Lookout versus Castaway simply because I knew Lookout was brand new.
Awesome. Well, your first stop is at Castaway. Tell us about your day on the original island.
That was a lot of fun. We did have a little bit of a late start. So I remember waking up and looking at my phone and I was like, oh my goodness, it's 10 a.m. My day's already being wasted. So I scrambled out of bed, showered, and hopped off the ship. We did have an excursion booked for that day. We had parasailing booked. We're on the island by 11, and our parasailing wasn't until I think 1. So we made sure to kind of walk around the island a little bit, explore what it was. I loved how where the boat rental, I think, was for where they have the parasailing and everything like that. They had a little lookout that showed the aft of the ship. And I loved how you could just take pictures over there with the stern character and everything. That was really cute. I got a couple pictures of me kind of just like leaning on the post with the Dumbo in the background. And we went ahead and took the tram into, I think that's where the family beach was. I'm not sure. It's like Castaway, the lookout or the layout of Castaway still kind of confuses me. So we were over, and I think that was the family area, and they told us that we had to get off there in order to go to Serenity Bay. So we hopped off that tram, waited for the Serenity Bay tram to come, and I thought it was really cool just writing down the tram. How it was like you're going down this landing strip, and it had the words Castaway Key in the landing strip, like in the letters. So that was really cool. And then just getting over to Serenity Bay, just sitting there in a hammock because I was lucky enough to get a hammock. And I had a Mai Tai and just listening to the ocean waves crash in the background and this relaxing beachside music playing. It was bliss. It was pure bliss. For the whole hour that we were over there, it was so much fun. We absolutely loved it. But we did have to cut it short in order to get back over to the main area so that way we can hop on our boat for the parasailing.
What'd you think of parasailing?
I did not know what to expect. My mom was kind of afraid of it at first because she doesn't do well with heights, especially when you're the whole. Yeah. So she was even down to do it when we booked it originally. She was really excited for it. And the closer and closer she kind of got uneasy. And I can kind of understand because really you're thinking the only thing holding you on is just a rope. But we all loved it.
Oh, yay.
Absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. We had to go.
Yeah. How did they do it? It was a family of 3.
So somebody got to go twice. And that someone was me, because my dad did it once. He was okay with it. And it was funny because when it was my mom's turn to go, she picked me to go. She's just like, I want you to come with me. So I'm just like, okay, say no more. I really, really liked it when I got to go. So yeah, let's do this. So it was a whole lot of fun. But it was cool just being able to get out on the water and then be elevated so high up in the air. You could see the view of everything, being able to see the ship, the island, and seeing just like all that nature from up above, and kind of just seeing where you are, just these crystal clear blue waters as far as the eye can see. Like that doesn't exist where I live here in Southern California. Our waters are green. We're lucky if there's a little blue sprinkled in there. So it was just so, so beautiful.
You can literally see the curve of the earth from up there. It is so amazing. Until I got seasick, I absolutely loved it.
It's crazy how like serene it is up there too.
It's insane. And I just loved every single minute of it. It was so, so much fun.
Like, is Katie afraid of heights? How is it that I ended up doing parasailing with you?
That's just not an activity that she's interested in.
Okay. Well,
yes, Christy and
awesome.
I parasailed together.
Yep.
Did you eat on the island?
So funny enough, we did not actually. So after parasailing, because I think our all aboard time was like 4 or 4:30, and we were back down by like 2:30 or something like that. And my mom, because like how I mentioned earlier, she was having some big mobility issues with her knee. She didn't really want to walk around anywhere. So we just decided to head back on the ship. And that's when we actually went to, I think it was Cabanas for lunch, because it was like right before they closed, I'm pretty sure.
Perfect.
So we just went to get lunch there at Cabanas.
Awesome. Well, then let's turn it towards Lighthouse and tell us about your day at Lookout Cape.
I absolutely love that destination. Well, I already had pretty high expectations going there, especially after being to Castaway and knowing just like, okay, this is what a private island by Disney's like. Okay, I'm going to bring the bar up a little higher for what I expect Lookout to be like. It was spectacular. We loved every moment of it. It was funny, though, getting off on the pier, because from the room, when I looked out, I'm just like, oh, that isn't as bad as people were making it out to be from what I heard. It really isn't that bad. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, will this be okay for my mom to walk down the pier? And her being her typical stubborn self, she was like, you know what, I can do it. I'm going to power through it. We'll get to it and we're going to have fun. And she made it all the way to the end, but she was still in pain. So I think when we got over there, we were able to get something scheduled for her on the way back. So that way she could take the little cart or something that they had going back to the ship. So that way she wouldn't have to worry about it. But I thought the layout of the island was kind of unique, how they had all the cabanas on one side of the island, whereas like a bunch of the different cabanas, and I thought that's where the main area was. But then when we had to take a tram to get to the other side of the island, and we were kind of going through all the nature that they had there, I just thought it was really interesting. But then when we finally got to where I think it was like the Goombay Center, or I think that's what it's called, when we got over there and we saw what the view of the island was, it was spectacular. Like, it was the one time where I think Disney made something look exactly like their concept art, because it looked exactly like that. It was bright and vibrant, but it also looked natural, and it blended in with the natural surroundings, which is something that I really appreciated, because it just looked perfect, like very picture perfect. So we went over there. We were walking down the little boardwalk over to Serenity Bay, and we went over there. I went to go ahead and get a little beach chair or whatnot. Oh, and then I totally forgot. My family had an excursion booked for just my parents on the island. So I'm gonna rewind for a little bit, because I just remembered this. So it was on Castaway Day. We got back to the ship, and I opened my Navigator app, and I noticed the excursion that I initially booked for my parents had just disappeared. So I was a little confused by that. So I went to the concierge and I just asked for them to see if either the excursion got canceled or it's just not showing up in the system, what was going on. They got back to me and said that specific excursion, it was an ATV excursion, got canceled. So I was like, okay, not a big deal. Do you have anything like that similar that's available? And they did. They said it was a specific like ATV nature one, where it was going to like a guided nature tour, but on an ATV. So we booked that for them. And they said to meet by, I think it was like the Gathering Tree or something like that on the island. So I went ahead and just showed them where I was going to be at. So they walked with me to Serenity Bay, and then they walked back to the Gathering Tree. About an hour goes on. I'm there on the beach. I have a nice little drink in my hand, and I get a text on my phone that, oh, our excursion got canceled. we don't know what we're going to do. And I was just really surprised because it was still showing in the app that morning of. So I don't know what happened. There was like zero communication in regards to it getting canceled. So they were a little upset that they weren't able to really do anything because they also weren't dressed in really beach attire because they were thinking ATV, let's have maybe something, more appropriate for that. Like, I don't think they were even wearing flip flops. I think they were wearing kind of just like tennis shoes. So they were a little upset by that. But by the time they texted me, lunch was being served at the barbecue. So we went over to the barbecue to get some lunch. And I was really surprised at how good the food was there. Yeah, I had some ribs and a chicken sandwich. So we all really liked the food over there. We kind of just spent the day leisurely exploring the island, just kind of like relaxing, because it's very much a picturesque like seaside retreat. The water there and the sand, I've never seen anything like that before. I thought the water at Castaway was blue. Somehow the water at Lookout was even more blue. And that beautiful pink sand, it was the softest thing I've ever felt. It was spectacular. So I kind of lounged around in a little beach chair and fell asleep and accidentally got a big sunburn while my parents kind of just walked down the beach and just took in the scenery.
Yeah, definitely one thing to consider for your Lookout days is pack a bag and bring more than what you may think you need, because it's a long way to get back to the ship. I know when we went, like, I wore tennis shoes, but then I packed sandals for once we actually got to the beach. But even a change of clothes, if you're going to do those activities or hike, the Lookout bathroom facilities are honestly really, really nice. And there is plenty of them. What were your thoughts on each of the Serenity Bays and how they compared?
I definitely like the Serenity Bay at Lookout way more than the Serenity Bay at Castaway. And I know that might seem a little weird where it's like, why would you like that more? Because it's like still right next to the family area a little bit. I liked how close it was still to everything, to where at Castaway, because it's on the total opposite side of the island, I felt like it wasn't as developed and it felt really small, because you kind of just have the little barbecue area, you have the area for the drinks, and then you have a few cabanas over there and the beach. Where at Lookout, I felt like there was just more flow and it was a lot more cohesive, and it felt larger because it was next to everything. And there was some distance between it, so it still felt like it was a little more adult oasis versus being combined with everything. But I did like it over there a lot more.
Awesome. So overall, it sounds like Lookout was the winner between the two.
Very much so.
Great. Do you have any other thoughts on either of the islands or your sailing as a whole before we kind of take it to a close?
Actually, I forgot. Lookout, we saw the junk canoe celebration that they had, and I absolutely adored that. I really like when Disney puts in a conscious effort and towards trying to add the cultural aspects of wherever they're at for the offerings that they have. Like, a great thing for me is, especially being here in Southern California, and there's a lot of Hispanic Americans that live over here, myself included. So I love at the parks out here where we get a lot of like Plaza de Coco, and we get a lot of those offerings during the season. So I really love seeing the Bahamian culture incorporated into Lighthouse Point, and seeing just those bright, vibrant colors that you would expect to see when you're traveling throughout the Bahamas incorporated there. It really, really brought it to life. And I absolutely loved that aspect of it.
Love that. Well, sadly, your first cruise does have to end, but you did have a post stay at Walt Disney World. So what did you think of the disembarkation process, and how did you get to Walt Disney World after?
Disembarkation process was a breeze. That Concierge Express walk-off is worth it in and of itself. When we had our carry-ons and everything like that, and we said we're ready to go, watching the concierge host flag down an elevator and having it say priority across the top where it shows the floor number was just fantastic, because I knew we wouldn't be stopping on every single deck going down. And getting to avoid the massive crowd of people that was in the atrium, there were so many different lines of people. It just looked very, very hectic and chaotic. Being able to just walk off, just worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah, that's a feature we forgot to talk about, but it is a nice one.
Very, very nice, especially because my mom does not do well in crowds at all. She doesn't like it. She gets claustrophobic extremely easily. So that was very much a benefit that she loved a lot. And then in regards to transit to Walt Disney World, we utilized the Disney Transit to the port because we actually had a free cruise stay for one night at Saratoga Springs. So we booked that same transport back to the Polynesian, which was the hotel we were staying at for the first half of our trip out there. I do have to say, I liked it. What I did not like, though, is that we had to wait 90 minutes from the time we got on the bus to get over there.
Yeah, 90 is a lot. That's a long time.
We were waiting there, and I'm just like, it was, and I was counting because I was looking, and I'm just like, it's already been an hour. And I'm looking, there's still more people walking. And I understand why they do it, because they want to have the bus be full of all the guests that they're taking to property.
Yeah.
But it was a very long time we were waiting there, because I think it was. And I was just even thinking in the time there, I'm just like, we could have been in an Uber and we could have been at our hotel already.
Wow. Did you share that commentary? I mean, obviously it's not like the bus driver's fault, but did you share that opinion with anybody at Disney Cruise Line?
I did. So we made sure to fill out everything like that. I remember when they had us do like the survey before we walked off the ship, we did that. But I also made sure to send out an email in regards to that, because I wasn't really upset or frustrated by it, but I wasn't expecting that.
Mhm.
And even if they had that phrasing in when you're booking it, that you might be waiting an extended amount of time for your motor coach to depart due to everybody disembarking the ship and then sending them to the different places, I would understand that. And that would have affected us maybe booking an alternative method of transportation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a lot. We were just waiting there, and we're kind of even looking back and forth. They're like, are we on the right bus? Like, what's going on?
Interesting. Yeah, definitely kind of definitely detracts from the benefit of the early walk off when you have to wait too.
Well, if you were trying to get to the parks or something, it's just, yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it was too, because we were actually really waiting to get over to the hotel, because this was our first time ever staying at the Polynesian. Whenever we stay at Walt Disney World, we always stay at the Grand Floridian, which we did end up staying there because we were doing a split stay. I was really excited to go over to the Polynesian and see what the club level is like over there, because we booked a club level room, and just check out all the amenities, because I'd never stayed there before. So it was a little upsetting, but I mean, in the end, we made it over there, and we were at Walt Disney World for a wonderful 8 nights after the cruise, and it was still loaded with so much fun.
An incredible vacation.
It really was a vacation that I will never, ever forget.
Well, before we take us out, I have just a couple more questions for you. First off, did you have any notable cast interactions that you didn't already highlight that you wanted to discuss?
Our servers in the main dining room, funny enough, we only saw them twice. On that second night, they remembered all of our names. They remembered our drink order and everything like that. And we didn't even see them consecutive nights.
Right. Yeah, they're so amazing.
I don't know how they do it. They were just absolutely spectacular. I cannot remember the name. I need to go ahead and just make a notes app of it next time. Every interaction that I have, all of the crew on the ship was spectacular. The concierge hosts were so personable. The best service that I've ever experienced across any version of Disney before. It was phenomenal. So it was like our servers, our concierge hosts, and truth be told, every interaction that we had with the crew on that ship, it was just spectacular. Like, I feel like the Disney difference really shines specifically on Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah, we agree. It's so good.
I think you already hinted at it, but what is next for you?
Oh my. Well, we have a lot of things coming up next. So, funny enough, and actually, I think it's 27 days, I will be hopping on the Disney Wonder, sailing to Alaska for 7 nights. We are also booked in Concierge on that ship as well. We're booked in a Category 2A, 1-bedroom suite. So very excited to see what that ship is like. I've seen the Wonder multiple times here in San Diego docked. So it's really funny. Oh, I've seen the ship so many times before, but now I'm going to be able to go on it. So I'm really excited for that. And then we have another trip coming up in November. This one I'm probably the most excited for, and my friends are not hearing me stop talking about it, because we're on the Wish, and I'm really excited to go on the Wish because we have an opportunity to stay in one of the royal suites. We're staying in the 2-story Briar Rose Royal Suite on the Wish. Very excited for that. This is kind of like our splurge, because my cousin is going to be coming along with my family, and he's never traveled with us before. So we're just doing a big all-out trip where all of us are going to be together. And then we're tacking on a few days at Walt Disney World after that. So we'll be in Florida for almost around 2 weeks. And then we have another cruise booked in 2026 on the Dream, going to the British Isles.
Oh, I am doing that cruise in September.
Oh my gosh.
That would have been
Yeah,
fun.
my mother has been wanting to go to the UK forever. And when we saw those itineraries drop, we immediately booked it. And we're actually staying in the same cabin that we stayed on the Fantasy.
Fun.
Love that.
So we're really, really excited to go over there. And then we're trying to see if maybe we could sneak a little weekend getaway cruise on the Wonder when she's docked in San Diego, going to Catalina Island and everything like that, because it's super close to us. I didn't know how many itineraries that the Wonder had specifically coming out of San Diego during spring break. And I'm just like, oh, that's actually really close.
Yeah, those are some great itineraries. My first Disney cruise was actually the Wonder out of San Diego, funny enough.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yep, we did a Disneyland and cruise combo for our honeymoon. Johnny, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience from your first Disney cruise. Where can our listeners follow you?
So you can find me on Instagram at GrandCalStan.
And I also want to thank Johnny for his Apple review, which he made for us recently. We appreciate your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And for our listeners, if you haven't done that, if you could please fill out a review, we would greatly appreciate it. And before Lake asked me where you can find me, I am all over the internet at Pack Your Pixie Dust. And if you would like assistance booking a future cruise, including Concierge, I would love to help you at no additional cost to you. You can reach out to me and I can help you get that going. And Lake, where can we find you?
You can follow me at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube, and you can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and of course find more information on our websites on dclpodcast.com. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Johnny for coming on and sharing his family's adventure on the Disney Fantasy. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Kristen, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.